Summer, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. So, before we get into your work, I want to know first and foremost, right now, 5 years ago, we were in the thick of this pandemic trying to figure it out. And it was this unknown that we all had to figure out. How much of living through that has influenced the way that you do things today?
Um, I don't know that I think that it probably does influence some of the way I approach how I spend my time and how I place value on time and spending things. I know that the pandemic has really determined my life for the past 5 years. So it's been the influencer of everything that's pretty much, I think, happened to me over the past few years. I mean, it was the impetus of how I was able to make a film and given me time to be with myself and just kind of withdraw some of the distractions of pressures from the outside world a little bit to be able to focus on things that I've always wanted to do, but also it kind of puts into perspective the the time that we may have here on this earth and we don't know what it is. And so to use it wisely and meaningfully and to support the people that you love and care about. And so I think that if anything, it's definitely it allowed me to achieve some things that I wanted to do, but it's also it's caused a lot of obstacles too, just professionally in terms of I don't think that the independent film industry is necessarily completely healed from it. I think that we're still on that journey as the industry continues to change and evolve and us kind of rebound from that. I think that, I think we're still in the rebound process.
I've always been a huge indie fan. I remember, especially in the 90s, which was kind of the glorified era of all
Mhm.
that. There were so
Oh,
many good
yeah.
films, from the Wes Andersons just all the way through, the
Hmm.
Weinstein Company. And I've noticed that too. It's like the weird thing is I'm a kid of the 80s, so the fact that comic book people have become the main bread and butter. I
Hmm.
just never thought that those films would be made and would be taken
Hmm.
seriously as a kid. And now it's eclipsed everything and they've cut back so much. But I miss those, like, even like I saw a clip of Napoleon Dynamite the other day and I was like, God, I miss those films so badly,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, there's a texture to them that feels a bit more intimate and I don't like to use the word small because people say, "Oh, you make small movies or whatever." I was like, "Well, the size of the screen that I'm on is usually the same as other screens,
Yeah.
but the feeling of it, I hope, feels more personal and connection and a bit more risk-taking and daring and I definitely feel like all those that time period of film that you reference is definitely, impactful to me. Like I remember films specifically like, The Good Girl, with Jennifer Aniston and Jake Gyllenhaal, and some of these, Secretary, some of these kind of riskier independent films that had females at the forefront of the film, and I was like, wow, this is something different than what I'm used to seeing,
Yeah.
because I grew up like a child of the 80s and watching, mainstream, some big whatever I could rent at the gas station type movies, but then also, soap operas were a big deal, and that's what, my mom and all the women in our families watched. So,
Yeah.
it's definitely changed, and I think that, it's a blessing and a curse that we have so much access to so much content. I'm glad that there's accessibility, but I do think that, the oversaturation of options sometimes I think prohibits people from just sitting with things and making choices. I
Yeah.
think I think I'm guilty of it. You'll spend a whole episode trying to find something to watch.
Yeah. That's the thing.
So,
That is totally
hmm
true. So
hmm
let's get to the heart and soul of exactly what you do right now in 2025. I'm going to put you
hmm
in front of a bunch of grade school kids, sixth graders. It's career day, and one of the
Okay.
kids in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer
hmm
them?
Well, I get to do three things. So first, help make movies. So I'm a producer, but I'm also a writer director. So I either help people make movies or I've just written and directed my own. So that's one of my jobs. And then another job is I'm a professor. So I'm like a teacher for older kids, is what I would tell sixth graders. And then I'm a caregiver, so I help take care of my parents that are getting a little bit older and need a little extra help.
So, what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream in the sixth grade?
I think when I was in the sixth grade, I've always had aspirations to be a teacher. I mean, my favorite toy as a child was a Mickey Mouse chalkboard that I had, and I used to line up all of my dolls and teach them. But then I also, I heard the word lawyer and stockbroker and thought, oh, those are things smart people do, so maybe I'll try to be one of those. But I think my heart's always been in teaching, and the people that I've looked up to most in my life and have been had such meaningful impact on me has been teachers. So that's been, meaningful to me.
What was the early film? What was the film that made you think, I want to do that?
Um, it's a good question. I don't know that there's one specific one. I do remember more so a defining scene that made me feel something is I remember watching American Beauty laying in the floor. And I remember the scene where Lester Burnham's character throws a plate against the wall in a family argument. And that was just something that felt so real and different, and just some of the dynamics in that dinner scene was just that one dinner scene was something that I'd never seen really before on screen, was two people really playing passive aggressive to the point of getting aggressive. So
Yeah,
I think I was just finally at the age where I could understand layers be under dialogue, like what people were saying, but what they were really saying. And so I think that was kind of the time period where, that was the years where there was like American Beauty, Full Monty, As Good as It Gets, and then, a lot of the Miramax films. So it was these character-driven dramas that I think affected me a lot. And then, as a child, I probably watched Beauty and the Beast 1,000 times on VHS. And then I started, when I was old enough to have money, going to Blockbuster and buying movies. So I would go to the bins and buy those independent films, Raising Victor Vargas, Tully. I would see all these films in the buckets that would be like, all right, three for 9.99, or four for 20, whatever it is. I do the math and be like, all right, these are $5 each, or these are $4 each. I have that. So that was kind of like it's funny how economics can sometimes guide your artistic selection, but I guess that's true.
it is. It
hmm
influences so many things. So, let me ask you this. Who has been that inspirational force for you to do this, to make films, to put stories out there for people? Who have you looked up to?
I mean, to be honest with you, storytelling in general is something that I started out as an English teacher, so, reading things always was kind of special to me, and I wasn't necessarily a bookworm, but when I would read books, I would see them in my head, and I would think like, oh, I want to see this on a screen. But there's definitely been some influential people. I mean, I had the pleasure to work for about a decade with a filmmaker named Ramin Barani, who I learned so much for about the art of making filmmaking, but then just to the hard work that it takes to make a film. So seeing his dedication to his craft was very inspirational to me to see. But also during that time period is when I started to see the indie filmmakers that you first spoke of, like, Kelly Reichardt, David Gordon Green, these people that are, maybe in the outskirts of New York and LA that have like such a regional specific voice, Jeff Nichols, these type of things. So those would be filmmakers that have kind of inspired me. And to be quite honest with you, I think that I've been most inspired in my journey as I've started making films, more so than to become a filmmaker. I mean, actually just wanted to start working in like advertising. When I was in college, it was like print media was huge.
Yeah.
So I really followed, like, did studies about, the Calvin Klein campaigns, and I would just get all the magazines and see the storytelling that people tried to do for good and for bad, like how it had good and not so great impressions on audiences. And I was interested in that. So, if anything, in terms of like image to idea to affecting someone, I honestly think that it was books and magazines that it made and excited me about the idea of finding some way to do it. And then as I started watching films and liking them, probably in my, late teens to early 20s, probably in college when I watched Good Will Hunting was a film that was pretty inspirational to me to watch and see because that was the story of like, all right, these two dudes wrote this script and, it was a college type movie. I was in college, so it kind of connected to me. And so those were the type of things that, kind of have inspired me along the way. I know that's not exactly a specific answer, but that has been like my emotional journey along
Yeah.
the way. And now I'm very inspired by, so many filmmakers. I love to watch Mariella Heller's films. I think she's a wonderful female filmmaker that I love to see what she's going to say and do next. And her perspective on womanhood is always fascinating to me, how she brings such depth and humanity to female characters. That's something I've aspired to hopefully do is bring some truth to all of my characters and make them multidimensional. And I think she does a fantastic job of that.
Do you think we're ever going to get back to that era in the 90s of the indie heyday? I mean, we media goes in weird cycles and sometimes we never see it again. Are you
Mhm.
hopeful that there's going to be a rebound and things will be more plentiful?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I actually think we have it and it's around. I
Yeah.
just don't think that people can find it as easy because of the saturation. There is a slew of amazing indie filmmakers out there making movies, making their first movie, their second movie for outside the mainstream that are doing what those of the aughts did, but the lens isn't on them in the same way. Like it was such a revolutionary, like the neorealist movement of the aughts was very like, impactful and is a big kind of part of history, but that's still happening. I mean, Pete O's like he's out there making these amazing films. Paul Harrell's a regional filmmaker. There's one Yen Tan, beautiful indie filmmaker. I mean, talk about someone that makes these films like that is so poignant and emotional and rooted in humanity, but made on a lower budget indie level. Like he's doing it, he's knocking it out of the park. I mean, his film. So I think it's there. My hope and praying is that it does come back to the level that you're talking about. I've often paralleled the film industry to Main Street, and I feel that when some of the big box stores started coming out, Main Street kind of died and a lot of small businesses was forced out of business. But then there became this farm to table resurgent. People became interested in, making their own soaps and the farm to table food movement. And there's now homemade candle stores, not necessarily the big box restores, lotion stores and things. And so that coming back to the Main Street and that farm to table movement, I think in the rest of our culture is kind of there. I just hope that filmmaking and entertainment can kind of become encapsulated with that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the festival circuits are trying to do a good job to preserve it, and I think that there's so many beautiful independent film festivals that are showing amazing films and art house theaters out there that are trying to do it. It's just now having it latch on to the mainstream and get the support. I mean, if I had $1 for every time and trying to promote my own film that I was told, well, you're just too small, I could probably make three other films.
So let me ask you this. How do you balance all this out? Obviously, I don't think people understand. I've worked on a few films
Mhm,
before, how
mhm,
grueling it can be. How do you
mhm.
balance this life of pouring yourself into projects and storytelling for the masses, and then to develop and take care of your own self and soul? How do you do that every day?
I mean, I don't know that I do a good job of it, to be quite honest with you. It's very difficult, especially because I find that the role that I have had to play in the last several years of my life has been caretaking, providing, or being a medium to help other people meet their needs or be a medium to help other people's dreams come true. So really it was the pandemic, kind of circling back to that, that made me take a moment to focus on myself. And because I did kind of have a slap in the face, I had a period of time where I went through some health issues, and of all times to be diagnosed with an immune disorder, autoimmune disease, I was right during the pandemic. And I just went through a lot of change, things, just a lot of illness that a lot of people face in their early 40s, with just body changes and things that I just didn't know how to handle. And no one really thought, well, that's just normal. That's just normal. So I think that there's some bad messaging out there for women of a certain age that not feeling good is normal. And I didn't want that to be normal. So I do make a really concerted effort now to kind of track my life a little bit more. Like I journal some, but I also a dear friend of mine gave me like a habit tracker once and said, Summer, I want you to start tracking like things you do for yourself. And so it did kind of make me realize, like, I track things like, oh, walk, and I just have a thing called self-care, and that self-care might be something as small as like putting on a face mask for 10 minutes at the end of the night, or taking a bubble bath once a month, or something like that. Just making sure that I do small things. I'm not really in the position to do large things for myself. So I have to do small things. And I think it's when you take time to do those small things, it can make larger impressions. And I think sometimes the biggest way that you can take care of yourself is sometimes realizing you can't take care of everything. And also, as being a caretaker this past year, a lot of people have told me, Summer, being a half glass, having your tank half empty is not really helping anyone. You need to fill your tank. So I'm trying to do better about that. Asking for help is a big way to kind of keep yourself on track. And aside from just mental health and therapy, but like relying on your community. I mean, I don't know how rural the area you live in, but I live in a very rural area. Looking at my window right now, I know who lives in each house. I know their grandparents. We're all connected, and they know what I'm going through or anything. And if I need something, I can call them. And that's a big deal. And I don't think everyone has that luxury in life. And I think people should make efforts to build a community around them, because I don't think you can do everything alone. And I don't know that you can take care of yourself by yourself.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not easy.
So
Mhm.
let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into that 26-year-old version of you before the quarter life
Oh,
crisis, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this
hmm
life you've led, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you give?
Oh man, I would tell that person that you're worthy.
Yeah.
hmm That
So,
you don't have to prove it every day.
yeah. So let
Mhm.
me ask you this.
Yeah.
Sometimes being in this world of making films can be
Yeah.
serious. There's a lot of moving
Oh yeah.
parts. Let's
Yeah.
say you walk into a room of everybody
hmm
that's worked on a film with you, that's known you in a
Yeah.
professional sense, and you get to
Ooh.
swim through that group of people and go up to a
Yeah.
podium and tell them one fun thing about you, one thing that would humanize you that they didn't know. What would you tell that room?
Oh man, first off, that would be one of the coolest days ever, because I would love to see all of these amazing people that have what I called peppered in my life at different points, because we're very transient workforce. So it would be amazing to walk through that room. And one fun thing that people don't know about me, oh, I have no idea. Like, because I'm pretty, here lately, I've been very vulnerable about things about myself. But fun things is, I do love to cook. I don't know that I'm amazing at it, but I do like it. And I actually think that I don't show my comedic side as much as I do, but the people closest to me would think that I had a pretty wicked, dark humor. And I think that's true. I think being Southern, there's an element of Southern Gothicness that, like, my humor can get pretty dark and pretty bleak sometimes. And I think that's a coping mechanism. So I
Sure.
think that probably underneath all the maybe smiles and things is like, there's someone that has some strange thoughts. Probably, I would say, but I would say the funnest thing is like I do have probably an unhealthy connection to turtles.
Okay. Okay. I dig it.
Maybe
No,
that maybe
no,
that's it.
yeah, that's great. So let me ask you this: as an award-winning filmmaker, if you look back at your life of everything that you've done and evolved into on every level, what are you the proudest of?
Making you and I,
Yeah.
by far, would be what I'm proudest of because it required me to be very vulnerable and it made me take the most risk. And but also I feel like that film is really a culmination of everything that I've learned from all the wonderful people that I got to collaborate with. You know, a lot of people that are filmmakers or want to be directors know it at an early age and like come out of the gate like I want to direct movies. And so a lot of people, but I'm coming at this a little later in the game and I do not feel that I could have made this film if I tried at 26. I don't feel that it would be as intimate as it is and complex people, but I also wouldn't have known how to do it the way that I've done it without working with, filmmakers that I had the luxury of working with, like Ramin and working alongside a prolific producer and Carrie, and having the support of Sundance and the Film Independent Labs that I've workshopped other works through really just helped me do that. So I feel like this film is really like a culmination of someone that knew nothing about film and worked for like 15 years learning how to make it behind the scenes and in front of the scenes and became brave enough to just try to do it all
Yeah.
and do things I didn't know how to do. Like I knew nothing. I sat in a lot of edit rooms, but I'd never edited a movie before. I just worked a lot of puzzles. Maybe that's the other fun thing about me. I love puzzles and I
Yeah.
get very like Howard Hughes about them. Like I will sit for 10, 12 hours and do a puzzle soup to nuts. I don't like to sit and have them laying around. I'll
Yeah.
just do it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. At the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family,
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah.
colleagues, everybody that knows you. But you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? On most days, I am really, I hate to use the cliche, I'm just a girl. But I think I am much more than that. I do think that I am an extremely, I think I'm a very emotional person and I'm just becoming okay with that. And I think it's working through the film that I'm not afraid to show my emotions. Like even just now talking about myself is emotional to me and
Yeah.
mainly because I don't do it a lot.
Sure. Sure.
So I think being vulnerable and that I am strong. I've been through a lot of like different traumas and things, but I still have hope.
That's good.
And
I love it.
I love to like help people and make them see like my favorite thing about teaching is I teach now at a wonderful school, Stony Brook University. They have a film school based in Manhattan, and I have a lot of students that don't necessarily come from the filmmaking world and or have connections, so to speak, in the industry. And some of them are just also so talented. And I think that sometimes we're in an industry that our success is hyper is only at the most extreme.
Yeah.
Oscars, Golden Globes, 200 theaters, huge box office, and like that's success to the outside world. But I hope that I'm learning to define my success in other ways,
Yeah.
and I think that that's something that if something about myself that I know that I am is I'm someone that's still growing.
Yeah.
Like I don't have it all figured out. I'm super resourceful. I am extreme. I have a lot of common sense. I come from the world of hard knocks. I can dress up well, but most day, like I live on a farm, and the other day I'm trying to figure out like how to build a ramp or something outside the house for my father. Like these, it's just like I'm definitely a salt of the earth person, and I think that's how I would describe myself. And I'm also very proud of that. I don't try to cover it up, and it's actually something that I think has made me me and makes me different than some people. Um, so I would think that too. I'm just like, I think I do epitomize some things about the South and of Southern women that is a little bit different. I do, I wear a lot of burdens on my shoulder, but I have a lot of strength to carry them. And it doesn't have to be a loud strength. I don't have to be the loudest person in the room. That's okay with me.
Yeah. So summershelton.com is the place to go to catch everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One-stop shop. I love it. Summer, thank you so much for being raw,
Yeah.
open, vulnerable. It's been wonderful. Great to know you.
Thank
and
you.
best of luck with everything.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm so thankful that you had me on and grateful that you took the time to chat. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.